Hello there. This video is a short introduction to Inkscape as a drawing tool. Whether you're a student or a professional, there is often a requirement to draw diagrams as part of reports or presentations. It's nice to be familiar with a good drawing tool, and Inkscape is a very good drawing tool that I am particularly familiar with and that I have used quite extensively. In this screen recording based video, I have turned on a software called Screen Key, which will display on the screen which key press I am making on the keyboard. Let me first fire up Inkscape by typing Inkscape ampersand. Maximize it. The first thing I do when I use Inkscape is to change it into landscape mode. Most of my drawings are in landscape mode. For that you need to fire up document properties by pressing Ctrl+Shift+D. The nice thing about Inkscape is that it has keyboard shortcuts for most functionalities. So if you're not familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, you can use the menu option. I am familiar, so I have used it now. Let me choose landscape. Now the drawing is in landscape mode. Next thing I want to do is to maximize the drawing area. The keyboard shortcut for that is the key 5. Now I have my drawing area and I can draw whatever I want. On the left here, you see various options for inserting, for example, rectangles and squares, 3D boxes, circles, ellipses and arcs, and so on. Let me, for example, insert a circle. I can also draw a line. I can also draw a polygon like this. The same thing can also be used to create a spline where you just click and drag this way. This is useful for creating arbitrary shapes but with nice contours. You can change the properties of shapes and lines you have drawn by selecting it. Ctrl+Shift+F brings up this menu. You can change the fill, the stroke. Let me change the stroke here. I'll change the color to red. And I can also change the stroke style. Let me make the line fatter. Introduce some dashes. And I can also make it into an arrow. Like this. I can also introduce some text. I can also insert images. Here in my browser, I have an image which I'm going to copy, come back here and press Ctrl+V for paste. Inkscape also has inbuilt library from which you can import. You can explore this by yourself. One of the nice things about Inkscape is that it has a very rich set of object manipulation functionalities built in. So you can select an object, Ctrl+C for copy, Ctrl+V for paste. Let me do Ctrl+V again. And then when an object is selected, you can press delete to delete it. You can select an object and scale it. When you're scaling, you see this lock button here. If you have the lock button locked, that means the aspect ratio will be locked. As the computer becomes smaller, the aspect ratio is maintained. You can also mirror an object by selecting it. If you press H, it is flipped horizontally. And if you press V, it is flipped vertically. You can also do complex manipulations by selecting the transform functionality. You can rotate by an arbitrary angle, you can do skew, and so on. You can group objects together. Let me select these. This is a shift click for continuing to select objects. So I have now selected 4 objects. Pressing Ctrl+G will group all of them into the same object. Now as you can see, if I do scaling, all of them behave as a single object. Now I can ungroup them by pressing Ctrl+Shift+G. Another feature of Inkscape which is very useful is the copy properties feature. So here I have changed the properties of this line earlier. Let me now copy this object by pressing Ctrl+C. Now if I select this other object and press Ctrl+Shift+V, it will copy the properties of the object I had copied onto this new object I have selected, Control Shift V. As you can see, the new object's properties have been copied from the old object. Inkscape also has a rich set of functionalities for aligning and distributing objects. Let me show you an example. I am going to select these two objects and go to the Align and Distribute option, and I can right align the selected objects by pressing this. Align left edges, which is the same in this particular case. So let me select these two and align them by the center of the vertical axis. So you can do sophisticated operations like these. You can also distribute them to space them out equally, vertically or horizontally. You can save the drawing you have created by pressing Ctrl S. The first time you save, it is going to ask for the file name. The format in which by default Inkscape stores files is scalable vector graphics for SVG extension. So I am going to save this file in my home folder. Typically, after creating a drawing, you want to export it into some other format for embedding onto a report or presentation. Inkscape has a rich set of export options. Export bitmap, or when you do save as, you can have a whole set of options here. Typically you use PDF or EPS is what I use to export onto reports or presentations. Now, even though you can do exporting from the menu, what I find usually convenient is to use the command line terminal itself. So here we have the drawing.svg file. So you can type Inkscape-D-A drawing.pdf drawing.svg. This -D option says that I want only the drawing area and not the entire page exported. -A is the option for exporting to PDF, and when I do this, drawing.pdf is created, which I can look at using a PDF viewing software such as Events. So here's the diagram which we just drew. Let me end this video by showing you a diagram I recently created using Inkscape. This is a diagram which shows an experimental setup in a particular scenario. So this has embedded images, text, lines, straight lines, curved lines, splines, and so on. So hope this video is good to get you started to explore Inkscape and to put it to use.